Hello, everyone. Good morning, and a very warm welcome to the second episode of HSBC's interactive webinar on Road to Recovery. I am Rakhi Sharma, part of the business banking team at HSBC, and I would be your MC for the session. With Road to Recovery, we embarked on a journey towards positivity, determination, and renewed vigor in these challenging times. In the first episode, our panel members shared their views on tackling the COVID-19 pandemic head-on while managing business continuity, health and safety, all at the same time. Hence, it is only fitting that our second episode celebrates women, for whom multitasking and balancing are not new phenomena. Today on the panel, we have the company of few visionary women who are shining examples of strength, stability, and perseverance. Before we begin the session, some housekeeping rules. All attendee lines will be muted and video will be disabled during the session. The Q&A option on the menu bar at the bottom of your screen can be used to feed in your queries. This option will remain open and active during the entire session, and in case we're unable to take your questions due to time constraint, we will ensure that we reach out and answer them to you. Also, the session is being recorded. That said, I would now like to introduce our first panelist, Ms. Aditi Pai. Aditi is the Chief Financial Officer at Bewakoof.com. Founded in 2012, Bewakoof is a lifestyle fashion brand for the creative and contemporary Indian. Aditi is a chartered accountant and has over 10 years of experience in consulting, finance, and taxation. In her previous roles, she's been associated with marquee names such as Purple.com and SNC Lavalin. Welcome, Aditi, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rakhi, for having me here.
Our next panelist is Ms. Monica Gupta. Monica is the co-founder and chief operating officer of Craftsvilla Handicrafts, a leading ethnic online platform in India. The brand was co-founded with a vision to create a platform where underprivileged artisans can make a living by selling their handcrafted products. With over 5 million products to choose from and over 30,000 sellers on board, Craftsvilla today provides an array of ethnic products directly from the designers and artisans. Thank you for joining us, Monica. Moving on, our final panelist is Ms. Gauri Gokhale, partner Nishit Desai Associates. Gauri has been practicing law for over 20 years and is a member of the Confederation of Indian Industry. She leads the IP, technology, media, and entertainment law practice at Nishit Desai Associates. Gauri has authored research reports and articles on a variety of subjects which have been further presented at various national and international seminars and conferences. Gauri, we welcome you to the session. I think we'll have Gauri join us back in another minute. In the meantime, I'll move on to introducing our moderator of the session today, Ms. Aditi Puri. Aditi is the head of marketing for wholesale banking at HSBC India and a woman leader many of us look up to within the organization. Thank you so much, Aditi, for moderating this session, and over to you. I see Gauri will join us in any minute now.
Thanks, Rakhi, especially for that very flattering introduction. And thanks to our panelists for joining us today. But a big shout out and a big thanks to our audience for joining us for the second episode of the Road to Recovery. You know, while we'd really like to meet you in person, I think new times call for new ways of interacting and engaging with you. And this has not only changed the way we engage with you, but what it's done, we've noticed over the past few months, is the way it's caused a lot of change in the way we run our business. Now, that said, I'd just like to kind of reach out to my panelists for the first question. We know that the new normal has kind of affected the way we do business and has impacted you all as business leaders. But as women leaders in particular, I just wanted to know and understand, have you all faced any specific challenges or any specific circumstances, and how have you overcome them? Aditi, since you're the namesake, may I ask you to share your experience first?
Thanks, Aditi. As I say that these are interesting times, right? And this is the time to introspect. I feel that the pandemic has impacted all leaders alike, more to some industry than the other. One thing that the pandemic has surely done is it has changed the way of people's thinking. As I say that it's the Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest that is holding good here. It's not the smartest, not the fastest, but the one that is adaptable to change and quickly is something that counts here. Cash in your bank account based on your burn decides on how long you're going to survive this battle, right? Most of the CFOs and founders have deep dived in and understanding each and every single cost item and bifurcated whether they are necessary or whether they're discretionary. And that's now become a part of the company culture. In a startup, you are always a dollar less than a person short. And I think pandemic has taught us to live with it in a great way. Certainly managing team during this pandemic remotely has been a challenge. We're not culturally used to being on video calls and trying to understand what are the tasks that they are going to complete and how is the work going, and trying to find solutions around it. But I think now over time, as we call it, it's a new normal is sinking in. It's the right team, right peers who have actually helped me cope this up. On a personal level, it's always been challenging for women to manage work and office together. And now it's even more because you're managing work and office together at the same place. Practically your entire family is home. But I think sharing some responsibilities is something that has helped me navigate this entire period.
That's good to hear, Aditi, and you're right. There's been a lot of overlap in your workspace and professional space, and I'm sure everyone's feeling that pretty intensely. Monica, what about you? Similar experience at your end as well?
uh, Frankly, Aditi, all of us are, this is one moment in life where all of us are going through the same challenges, same problems, and same experiences. So, practically speaking, at Craftsvilla, we actually never allowed work from home. That was, there was a part of us which somehow said work from home ho hi nahi sakta hai. Either you come to office or you just take a leave. We are okay with leaves. If you have some work, take a leave. But then somehow this pandemic has changed our thought process, our experiences, our interaction with our team. Everything has changed a lot. Now we are so comfortable with work from home, and actually we have seen an increase in productivity as far as we as leaders are concerned or our teams are concerned. Everybody, we have seen a huge increase in productivity. Somehow, I think initial a month or two was such wherein we felt trapped, I would say, uh, since um, um, since we're into e-commerce of apparels, we were not allowed to operate at all. So we don't come, apparel doesn't come into essentials. So first 1 or 2 months was such wherein there were complications. I would say those challenges have helped us grow a lot, mentally, physically, spiritually, in every way. Whole of our team, we can see, has grown a lot in these few months. Uh, Mainly as a woman entrepreneur, I'm sure some of these challenges come for men as well. But as woman entrepreneur, frankly, there was this gray area between work and home, wherein at least you know when you have left home, when you are in the office, you are there, you are working, you are not thinking about home so much, you're not thinking about kids or maid or anything else. You know you're working. While here, sometimes that lines get really blurry. You are in middle of a meeting and your kid will come and say, "Mummy, bhook lag rahi hai." But then slowly and gradually, I think all of us have accepted that we as humans have a family too, and we have a workplace conditioning wherein we say, "Acha, ghar ki baat zyada mat karo, don't worry about home and just take care of your work." While now things have actually, in actual sense, now we are integrating our work and home. Earlier we used to just talk about it. We used to say work home balancing. Now it's not balancing, now it's an integration, wherein any family member can walk into this video and nobody feel I mean nobody will feel odd, because we know everybody is working from home, it's okay. So somehow initially it was a challenge, now it's an experience.
I agree, Monica. Just quick one. You said it's all about balancing, but we've been hearing a lot about how this work from home has created more of an imbalance. So we're working longer hours. Is that something you've perhaps seen at your end or with your team per se? Because that whole integration people are saying has perhaps caused this new phenomena.
Absolutely, absolutely. See, this is the new normal, like we all say. So now it's integration, not balance. So obviously there is an imbalance. But as long as we start accepting, and this is a new thing, so it takes little bit of time, little bit of adjustment. But once we start understanding that, like for me and some of our team members as well, what we have done is at least cleared out a space that if I'm sitting in this desk or in this place, nobody is going to disturb me, think I'm in the office, I'm not visible.
That's true. Yeah, that's an interesting way. I think we'll all have to find our niches on how to do that.
All evolving as we go.
True. I believe we have Gauri back with us. Gauri, we were just checking about, in this new normal, have we seen any specific challenges or circumstances that women leaders such as you have had to face? And just, your experience on how you've dealt with these challenges.
Sorry for that initial hiccup. My laptop was not supporting, this morning somehow, but I'm on mobile now. So I really liked, I mean, of course, in between I was hearing all the inputs, and I really sort of can relate to whatever is being said. And I think let's not discuss with women or men. I think now the situation is, at least in the metros, I can't really talk about for the other cities, but at least in the metros, that it is actually creating a balance. Because earlier, women had that thing, whether we like it or not in our society, that I have to do this, I have to do that. Right now everybody is working together in harmony, right? If I'm sort of cooking for me and my husband is cooking for my son because he doesn't want what I'm cooking, right? So that harmony has got established somewhere along the line. Secondly, insofar as challenges are concerned, I think I echo whatever was said before. But I think we sort of sometimes, and again, not necessarily gender, but what I'm saying is sometimes we feel that we have to be perfect at everything, right? So that is something, an acceptance that that yes, there can be, like the other day, I was in the kitchen and I was like, who's going to clean up all this? So my son said, why does it need to be cleaned up, right? So that acceptance that things can just let them be and you can just move on, right? I think so. Prioritization, I think we are able to now prioritize things better in our mind, and this is across the board. I'm hearing that I know your question is on challenges, but from the challenges do come all these reactions, that right now what is my priority? Because sometimes we think too much of the future, but live in the present. I think that just sit and think. That thinking time has increased, because earlier you were just running, moving around. Now you are able to think and digest things. And I believe from all these challenges, I think what I have learned is to love the simplicity of life, right? I mean, you are now, your maid has started coming, is just a pleasure, right? To say that yes, that simple things in life you can appreciate and enjoy, right? So I think I always see the positive sign of whatever we are facing today. Challenges, I completely agree whatever was said before. Like, whilst I was, doing all this, some maid was asking for my instructions for cooking. I was like, wait, let me just figure this out, right? So all those things are happening, but I think coming back to what I'm saying is simplicity of life. We have begun to appreciate. Secondly, as I said, harmony and appreciation. Even in the organizational level, right? Even at the organizational level, people have become more empathetic, because earlier only few people had some, things to adjust. Now everybody is grappling with personal, situations, so you are able to empathetically understand that, yes, your earlier, in a corporate setup, you I don't know, I mean, some people are very, sort of hard, sort of, they take a very hard line, work is work, and home and whatever, no, I don't want to know your personal issues. But now everybody will understand, right? So that empathy will increase, and that will help us to become more humane. As somebody, I think the earlier speaker said, if somebody is going behind you, some kid is walking around, you will be absolutely fine, right? That's a new normal. I'll stop here and back to you.
No, thanks, Gauri, because you were talking a lot about harmony, a lot about access across teams. So I was wondering, is that what you're even seeing in your workplace? Is that continuous outside the home? And I'm really glad to hear that it is the case on that front. And since you touched about empathy, Monica, I believe one of your favorite quotes is by the most empathetic people our nation knows, Mr. Mahatma Gandhi. And I believe you've somewhere actually said that we must be the change we wish to see in this world. That's your favorite quote. Just wanted to kind of check with you, is this what inspired you and your husband, Manoj, to found Craftsvilla about a decade back? And how's your journey and experience been? I believe you have over 30,000 artisans now as registered sellers. Tell us more about this journey.
So, frankly, our journey for Craftsvilla started with a road trip to Kutch, wherein we saw amazing products and we have stayed outside India for quite some time, and we missed India a lot. So when we came here, took that road trip, somehow it made us realize more and more how India is such a rich country, and we do not have access to all of it. So that's how Craftsvilla was started, that if we can put whole of India into one place, what place it can be. Somehow a store or an offline store did not strike us, because it's so rich, so diverse, that it cannot come into a store kind of thing. And at that time, e-commerce was booming. So we thought e-commerce is actually a good platform for us to bring all of it, because then millions and millions of products that all that India has to showcase can actually come into one place. So that's how Craftsvilla started, and it has been an amazing journey, few roadblocks, hiccups, everything. But overall, all of that has taught us a lot. It has shown us what real or true India is all about. And more people we meet, our appreciation for our culture, for this country has increased a lot over this
Wow.
last.
Wow, but it must be a tough one to get artisans, I'm assuming, onto an online platform, right? So was that a major hiccup? Because I'm assuming, given network bandwidth and just less exposure to the medium per se. How did you deal with something like that, Monica? Because that to me would be tough.
So, frankly speaking, artisans are the simplest people you will ever meet. They have their own challenges, but once you gain their trust, once you give them things into black and white and not play with them, they actually understand and trust you a lot. So obviously initially it was a challenge, but as and when as we started understanding their life, the simplicity of their life, and what simple things they want, it made our path easier.
That's good to hear, Monica. And coming on to another art form with Bewkoof Brands. Aditi, I read on your website that the brand wants to make an impact through innovation, honesty, and thoughtfulness. And generally, the brand, kind of represents a lot of boldness, a lot of being out there, a lot about following your heart. How do you take these brand values that you stand for into a function like finance? And how do you apply some of that to the field you lead for them?
Right. So Aditi, we are a young techie company, right? We love technology. We want to reach out to more and more people and optimize the current customer base that we have in order to serve them better. A good thing that has come out of this pandemic is that the unorganized sector is now going to more organized. Customers are now moving to more online buying. They're moving from cash to digital payments. So I think all of these, in a way, has helped business because you're an e-commerce company, helped cash flows clearly because when you're in a need of it, right? Now, it is necessary to adapt to this kind of change in the customer behavior. We are also in conversation with HSBC for more technology kind of solutions to help our customers and have a seamless customer experience. Babakoof was one of the first companies who started selling printed N95 masks. Printed quirky taglines is something that Babakoof is known for, right? And with a strong supply chain in a very short period of time, we were able to cater to this kind of a changed behavior of customers. A lot of innovation with respect to new categories, new channels that you wanted to expand to for quite some time. Just speed in with this entire COVID coming in. We as a finance team were totally flexible to so these kind of changes, be it any kind of regulatory kind of supports that was required, any kind of cash or any kind of intervention advances that we would need to go ahead and experiment this. We never wanted to be something that is holding back the company from innovating, and I think that is very, very important. At Babakoof, we have a speak up culture. We have a totally open door policy. We do not have any apprehensions to keep our thoughts ahead. And I think during these times, early warnings and giving heads up becomes very, very important to have a healthy P&L and a balance sheet. I think I would still talk on the finance angle, but yeah, I think it becomes more necessary to be bold enough and just put your thoughts right there that this is going to work, this is not going to work, this is historical data, this is what we think is going to happen in future. Is it worth the risk? Should we stop innovating, or should we take a calculated risk? I think such kind of calls with the finance team being in the panel, I think it helps.
So a lot of agility, Aditi, from what I hear from your end. And Gauri, on to you. You've been in law for about 2 decades now. And while Aditi was speaking about digital, I realized that a large focus of yours has been in and around digital IPs and things like that. On a broader level, where do you think we as a country are on all these aspects? Are we at par? Do we have some catching up to do? And how can we kind of get on pace on this whole moment, so to speak, that's happening?
Right. So I think we are at a very good cusp in my mind at this stage. And, my focus, for example, is technology, media, telecom, pharma, life sciences, medical devices. So if you see that sort of all the entire spectrum is actually, India is very well placed. And I say that for two, three reasons. Say, suppose we take media entertainment just as an example. I think India is a land of stories, right? You can see that recently, for example, on Amazon Prime, the one of the series which took the Indian classical music to the world, right? You have some very interesting stories coming out from all corners of India, right? So that on the one hand, then you have technology. I think we are very well placed in so far as technology adoption is concerned as well. And the third piece is telecom. The reason I say telecom, because the penetration that we have seen of the fiber, the pipe, and the entire sort of data boom that we saw. So if you see these three pieces together, I think we are very well placed to just go out there and challenge the world, right? And even if you see the education policy that has come out recently, it gives a good sort of impetus to not just the your technical sort of things, but also the softer sort of courses in terms of humanities and all of that. And the education policy also has recognized the need of all round development of a human being. So if we are sort of we have that great vision to say that we can just take this ahead, I think we are very well placed. Even the government policies and all that we are seeing, somewhere they are recognizing that yes, there is a need to give impetus to say electronics industry, and the software has always been our forte, but even the hardware and the Make in India campaign and all of that, right? So we see a lot of startups, and we have been sort of discussing with HSBC also. We see a lot of startups now. We are the third or fourth in the list in the entire world in the startup community, and we end up working as lawyers with a lot of startups. We can see that they want to challenge the world. Their business plan are no longer limited to India, right? So that is one good thing. Secondly, on pharma life sciences and med devices also we see equal amount of activity, especially what we could see that like we are we have been the pharmacy of the world, but even on med devices and all that we can see some sort of developments. Even the COVID-19 kits, we see a lot of activity, and the most important part is that the academia and the industry is now collaborating. We can see collaborations even there. In the COVID-19 kits, for example, we were doing some deals around that. So I think there is a huge amount of activity with proper impetus, and we have just one thing I have to say, that now uh, the the penetration of this growth has to happen across India, right? And how can we sort of achieve that, and not just in metros? So I think government policies are sort of going there. So as I said, huge potential, huge amount of activity, and even though in pandemic we are busy, so that says is all, right? So I think yeah, so we India is very well placed. Yeah.
Yeah, Gauri. And very quickly, actually, before I move on to my next question, you mentioned penetration has to grow. What are your views on implementation? So we have been reading a lot around policies. Where do you think we stand on implementation of these brilliant policies that are being coming our way?
I think, yeah, you're absolutely right, because unfortunately, like strategy, policy and all that is, in its place, but implementation or execution is the key. It will make or break your strategy and policy, right? So I think that is where I feel, and I could be completely wrong, but that is where I feel that public-private partnership is the way forward, because there is only so much that the government can really do, to assist. So can the private sector come in, understand what is the vision of the government, or contribute to that vision, drafting of the vision, and create modules for sort of taking this growth across, because everybody will benefit from that growth, right? So because as I said, government will have limitations, and rightly so, insofar as their infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, I don't mean necessarily the physical infrastructure, but just the human power, or the that the private sector can bring to the table.
That's interesting and good to hear, and definitely a key takeaway for a lot of our audience, I'm sure. Thanks, Gauri. Monica, we were speaking. Gauri spoke a lot about Make in India. Now, Craftsvilla and your brand is so intrinsic to the richness of our traditional and our culture. Do you expect Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative would put increase your brand outreach at some level? I mean, what's the impact do you think it would have on you, your artisans? Just your views.
See, frankly, Atmanirbhar Bharat is something that the name is given now, but as far as frankly the art and craft industry is concerned, the artisans have been Atmanirbhar from decades onwards. So I would say from the start. So uh, frankly speaking, like Gauri rightly said, the implementation of these schemes is the key. So thing is, there are a lot of schemes that have been floated for handicraft, handloom, and small businesses. But finally, we will see probably in a month or two how these schemes are implemented at the base level, because we see a lot of banks and other financial institutions coming forward with different kinds of schemes for all kinds of industries. So it will take us a month or two to see that actually these schemes reach to the ground level, to the people who actually require it.
True. And Monica, if I'm not mistaken, recently we had Handloom Day in India, right? And just taking from what Gauri said, I saw a lot of private fashion brands, so to speak, like your ensembles and things like that, participating in these days. What has been, to your mind, the success or the growth of this Handloom Day, and how do you think perhaps private brands have supported this?
So, National Handloom Board and the textile ministry took special initiatives to invite all the private brands to come ahead and participate and partner with the weavers directly. So that has been a great success. Frankly, there are so many weavers who could come online even during this pandemic when they were not able to sell their products. They actually could come onto e-commerce online and sell their products directly and get the benefit of the good pricing that they could get on their products. Frankly, Smriti Irani, textile ministry, everybody has taken a huge initiative to promote handloom, not just for the sake of that day, but for the whole year as well.
That's really good to hear. I'm sure that's been something that was well appreciated by everyone. I know I was seeing it all over the place. So good to see that growing. Aditi, you worked with startup founders and you've helped them raise capital. Um, for our audience here, what do you think startups should focus on when they present to investors?
I worked with Purple and Bewakoof and across different series of funding levels, right? And it's not only financial, and not everything can be measured in financial numbers at the start, right? And I think the more innovative steps that you take for your customers that help you drive the financial numbers is what is interesting for the investors. I think how your customers are going to get more customers is something that is an interesting point that should come across in the presentation. Over time, I've realized that there are only 3 points that everything boils down to. First being the return on capital. How is the money going to make money? Right. And clearly, what is the growth plan? How are you going to acquire more customers becomes important here. Second, as I said, cash flow. The top line is vanity, bottom line is sanity, but cash flow is reality, right? And how well will you be able to fund your own business? How sustainable this business is? That includes your working capital, unit economics, and margins. That becomes important here. And I think the third point that I would say is what is the market that you're trying to tap? How is your brand positioned, and how do you see it grow and excel? At what profit are you going to operate? What is the company's vision, which includes your product development, channel expansion, category expansion, marketing plans? I think the 3 points that I would say is return on capital, cash flow, and the market understanding. Is very, very key for any investor. It's across investors that you will have these 3 questions certainly coming in.
And do you think that's only in this time, or do you think that's across all times, irrespective?
I think more so across. It's generally how the investors look at a particular number. Like a couple of them are more driven for revenue. A couple of them are more driven towards profit. And now there is a striking balance between the two. I think now profitability is not an option. I think profitability with cash is something that is very, very necessary, because you do not want to have artificial capital put into business every time. You have to see how sustainable it is.
That's interesting. And Gauri, we're talking about profitability and we're talking about getting more customers. I'm in marketing, and the trends we've been seeing is that digital media has been growing a lot, right? You know, OTT platforms are becoming the big wigs when it comes to movie launches and program launches, bigger than we'd expected them to be. And it's all due to this time. What do you think is the scalability of media tech or the digital platform per se going forward in future? I mean, pandemic or no pandemic, I mean, where do you see this industry moving? Is it going to be as loved as it has been currently?
I think so. I'll tell you why. Because I think to supplement my earlier points in so far as how India is placed, but I think it also boils down to consumer sort of consumption patterns and the habits that get formed. Right? If you see the millennials, for example, they are quite okay to sort of consume content, on your mobile, right? So I think, and when we say, when you spoke about OTT, I will also add the edtech platforms, the medtech platforms, right? The media tech that you mentioned, but the entire tech aspect of it, I think, will definitely grow. and so right now we are doing it because of compulsion, because we cannot go to the theaters, right? But okay, once the theaters open up also, I think the habits that you have formed now probably will stay, and you will realize that you don't necessarily need to go to a theater to say a particular watch a particular type of a film. You will realize that you can go to the theater to probably watch the big whatever, the cine, the wherever you feel that you need a big screen. But the stories which are simple, and those type of stories, the series and all that consumption will continue to sort of boom in my mind. And if you really see, the biggies have really sort of put in a lot of budget for India. So you will see a lot of new talent being given chance, and you have amazing talent, and not only just in Hindi sort of, or a Bollywood kind of a setup, but even regional is doing tremendously well, right? You always had the TRPs. If you see the television sort of traditionally, the regional always had a higher TRP.
Yes.
So, right, so that regional, I think somewhere the focus will shift to regional, and creating more original content even for OTT platforms for regional. I think that will really be the next stage in my mind that we should focus on. And as I said, it's here to stay. But I want to go back to what your earlier question also was on what the investors are looking for, right? In my mind, I think this pandemic will tell the investors, not only when we talk about sustainability, not only sustainability in terms of money, but sustainability in terms of environment, sustainability in terms of giving back to the society. So we are beginning to see a lot of impact investments coming up, where the impact investors want to sort of contribute to the growth story of India, right? So we will see a spectrum of investors. Some are only focusing, say, on the monetary profit or revenue or whatever, but others also focusing on impact. And all these tech related innovations that you're noticing in India, this impact will also support that. Because, for example, when we talk about edtech, right, there is a good story to be taken. For example, education of best education to be taken to the villages. So edtech can achieve that, right? So all these developments will be supported by these impact investors. So you will see a good sort of harmony between the investments coming in and the growth story that we discussed.
Wow, interesting times. Thanks for your perspective. I have been getting messages from my colleagues that a lot of audience want to ask you questions. But before I hand over to them, my favorite, my pet question to all women leaders like you all, we've we know that women leaders suffer from the imposter syndrome quite often. Just want to know, how have you overcome, very quickly in your words, how have you overcome the syndrome? And for those who don't know what the imposter syndrome is, it's basically suffering from chronic doubt and self doubt, even though you have external validation of success and stuff like that. So Aditi, again, quickly on to you. How do you deal with this?
I think imposter syndrome, not generally a gender specific. I think everyone would have come across this at some point in time in the career. I think, as I see it, it's a bad day. You cannot have a positive life with a negative mind, for sure. Imposter syndrome, or this apprehension syndrome, is the bad friend in your head that you need to get out of. You have to have a strong support system who invoke this confidence in you, who are appreciative of your efforts and your achievements. That gives you a sense of belonging. It can be your team, it can be your peers, it can be your family. I think one thing that I've never feared to ask for help, and nothing has let me stop trying, because you never win if you stop trying. I think family has been a very, very important pillar for me, to just go back to whenever I face such kind of problems. And I think I think a strong kind of look back of what you have done from what you were, and just looking back at your journey, I think that instills a lot of confidence in you that it's just a bad day, just let it go, I think.
Nice to hear. Gauri, how about you? How do you deal with this?
So honestly, I don't think I need to deal with it. I never sort of thought about it that way. It is the way, I think the right word, in for my, at least for me personally, is constructive dissatisfaction, right? So you could have you could have done something, something better or something, and not again from a gender specific perspective, but just the fact that you can do better. That's the way to look at it. And if I can do something better than what I did yesterday, like in this pandemic I can cook better, so that is, that should keep you happy, and that should keep you going. And I completely agree that nobody can be a superman or a superwoman, right? You will always have your pluses and minuses. How you're able to sort of deal with the minuses and happily not sort of not make an ego issue out of it, because you can't be best at everything. So you don't need to feel that I can't do this, right? That's fine. You can live with it, and
Yeah.
and just build on your positives. And as was said, that positivity just keeps you going. And I completely agree that you're not an individual as such. You are a part of an ecosystem, right? Like whether it is family, whether your colleagues and all of that. So long as you create that positive circle around you, you're just fine in my mind.
Great to hear. Very positive view, Gauri. Thank you. And Monica, what about you?
Frankly, for me, it's more like I totally agree with what Gauri said. Nobody can be perfect. I am not a perfect human being. It's okay to have certain positives, certain negatives, as long as you are comparing and competing with yourself. Just every day, if you can think, what did I do yesterday that I can do better today? Because I feel if I start comparing with someone else, there will always be 10 things that I'll feel that I don't have, but I will miss out on the 10 things that I have and someone else will not have. So compare and compete with only yourself. That's the first rule I always follow. Second is focus on providing the value that you can. It's not necessary that you know everything, but if you know something about it, focus on providing that value that you can, whether it's family, whether it's organization, everywhere, just focus on providing value that you can. And third and most important, at least in my case, is have a sounding board. You need to have a sounding board, whether it's some friend, some family member, colleague, or your senior teacher, anyone. For personally, for me, it's my husband, who is a very I feel he is an ideal sounding board, because he will criticize whenever I'm not doing well, or I did something which I shouldn't have, or something which he feels that way. So he will criticize, and at the same time emphasize that it's okay if you did something wrong, it's okay, just move on and do better next time. So at least for
Wow.
me, having a sounding board gives a great uh, I would say looking for the future.
That's so nice to hear. And, again, like I said, I've been getting messages. We have a lot of our audience who wants to ask you guys questions. So I'll sign off by saying thank you. It's been one of the most interesting chats I've had. Thank you, Aditi, Gauri, and Monica.
Thank
Rakhi,
you.
I'll
Thank
hand
you.
over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Aditi, and to our panelists. Really interesting conversation, extremely enjoyable, relatable, all at the same time. And Aditi, you're right. There is a lot of enthused participation in terms of questions for our panelists. But before that, I'll also take a moment to say that there are a lot of good wishes and love that they're sharing for you to be so candid about your personal journey, struggles, achievements, efforts, everything. So thank you so much for that. Now, I think first up, I can see a very interesting question here for Aditi. This being twofold. Aditi, first part of the question would be, we discussed that you worked for Indian startups as well as MNCs. What, according to you, has been a more empowering and situation to be in? And in both scenarios, where do you think it's easier to have a work from home model as a more efficient way to have your day-to-day work done?
All right. Thank you for the question. I think it's a very personal view. I would say, and you choose your path based on your personality and priorities, right? Working in a startup and an MNC both has its advantage and disadvantage. And I might be sounding very diplomatic here because I've worked in both of them, which is why I can say this. I think on one hand, startup provides you a lot of exposure. And and MNCs instills a lot of discipline in the employees. And MNC is more process driven, and I think a startup is where you are building a process and being a part of the growth story. Right. A contribution in MNC, because you're one of the many, it may or may not be noticed, but I think in startup every person has something to contribute, and I think the impact can never go unnoticed. Responsibility, of course, is higher in a startup. It's a higher risk. Every action will have its impact on revenue or profits or costs, everything. And because the responsibilities are higher, so the recognition and the learning curve is also pretty steep. In a startup, I would say that in most companies you would work either long or hard or smart, and I think startup you have to be all three, and you cannot pick two out of them. For building something and building something meaningful, it takes time, and you need to devote that to make it big. Well, having said that, both are not easy, certainly not, but a startup is certainly much more empowering than an MNC.
Great. Thank you so much for that honest feedback and for sharing your journey, Aditi. Next up, I have an interesting question here for you, Monica. Monica, you're of course in a very unique situation where you've co-founded the company along with your husband, and talking of current times where the work and home boundaries are blurring, especially for you, that must have been the case even before the pandemic, because there's work in terms of a company that you've co-founded with your husband, and now there's COVID, which requires participation by both you and your husband at home as well. Do you think this has changed anything in terms of personal and professional dynamic for both of you? And if at all, do you think there is a reduced gender bias, at least in the urban areas, given that men are also being equally supportive at home?
I think, frankly speaking, pandemic or no pandemic, having your life partner as your business partner as well has its own advantages and disadvantages. Probably pandemic has just made this more clear, and probably now we see each other's perspective better because we are working together in the same home and working together in the same home. So pandemic has actually made things easier for us. Understanding each other's work area as well as household duties, that thing has actually eased off. Mainly, I think when you have your life partner and business partner as the same person, you tend to bring work home more often than not, because then all we talk about is work and work and work, whether it's at home or outside home. So good thing is now we don't feel guilty about it because it's work from home.
Right. No, interesting. I'm sure the journey for you has been especially, this way and not as skewed as in many cases, because you've had the support of Manoj as well, and had the good fortune of interacting with him otherwise as well. And I can totally relate to some of the points that you said today. So thank you for that. In the interest of time, I have this extremely interesting question coming up for Gauri. Gauri, as they say that girls with dreams go on to become women with vision. I think you personify that. In this context, how as a leader, as a woman, have you been able to navigate the work from home situation for yourself, and also being responsible for your team members and ensuring that they're also coping well with this situation?
No, I think that's the way I look at it, right? One is your physical well-being, right? But the other one is your sort of mental well-being as well, right? So in the initial times, we try to ensure that, those who are staying alone, especially, are taken sort of, are spoken to, are sort of, are sort of managing well, etc., right? So that becomes absolutely necessary in a organizational setup, that you're just not thinking about what you are doing, but how are the team members sort of faring as well. And in our organization, we have a very open system where we are, people may just call me because I look after the HR at the firm as well. So we would get feedback as well to say that, these are the things that need to be redone, or these are the things that we need, to be taken care of. And in fact, we took a survey about working from home, and it was very, very insightful for us that, we sort of asked some leading question and some open-ended questions. But touchwood, our team members felt that the organization had responded very well to the work from home sort of setup, because we put the technology in place very quickly, and also ensured that because for a law firm, I know I'm slightly digressing, but this is an important aspect. For a law firm, security of the system becomes absolutely important, right? So we had quickly taken care of all of that. And now coming to the work from home, it is not easy, but I have had the experience before as well, because when I had my kid, that time I had taken a 2-3 year work from home kind of a arrangement with the firm. So I was quite accustomed to working from home. So personally for me, it was not a big challenge. And as for lawyers, wherever you are working, because the work happens here, right? For us, it's not necessarily when you're at your desk. You're constantly thinking about some issue that the client is facing. How do I solve that issue? So wherever you are working. So I don't think it really changed much for me. The real challenge was managing household responsibilities along with work, right? That piece was challenging, where I was cooking while taking long calls, etc. But I think if you're good at multitasking, you somehow manage. But it was daunting task in the initial times, for sure.
Absolutely. No, really, relatable there, Gauri, and thank you so much for sharing some of the personal incidents and anecdotes also there. I'm sure many on the attendee list, especially females, do relate to what you just said. I think this is probably a time where we bring the session to the close, but before that, can't help myself but have a quick round of what they popularly call as the rapid fire. And I'll if you don't mind, Aditi, I can start with you in terms of what, in a word or two, would woman power mean to you personally?
I think empowering and self-dependence.
Wow. Amazing, amazing. Absolutely. I think bang on. Monica, if we can hear from you as well.
Accepting.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Accepting.
Really, thank you. I think that's a message that really needs to be taken loud and clear from this session. And finally, Gauri, to close the session with a few words from you on what woman power really means to you.
Just being yourself and being best at what you can do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists today, to Aditi, our moderator, and to all our participants who joined in and were with us throughout the webinar. Thank you very much. It's been an interesting session, many personal takeaways and very relatable incidents that we all discussed today. We look forward to your continued support, and should there be any questions that you feel we missed out, we will make sure that we reach out and answer those to you. Once again, thank you so much to all our panel members for their time today. Thank you.